Hello and welcome to the Scrivenery. I am Nick from Breaker Press Games, and let's go around and introduce ourselves. Ed?
I don't know what our circle is.
Right, yeah, right. Okay. So, hey, I'm Ed Stanek of Royorkin Games.
My name is Trevor Stamper from Blind Visionary Publications.
And I'm Stefan Surratt from Dragon Peak Publishing.
Very good, very good. And so, Trevor, why don't you go into asking Stefan about his work?
Yeah, Stefan. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
As all three of our long-term viewers will know, this show focuses on the publishing side of the industry. So we interview people. Stefan's recently been on RPG Ramblings and a couple other things, actually talking about his current Kickstarter, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. And most of those are about the Kickstarter itself and about the product that's coming out with Elfland and everything. What we like to do here on our show is talk more about the publishing side of it. What are your inspirations? What are the difficulties that you have when you were wrestling with a format, problem? Why'd you make the decision you made? What was beneficial there? And so in the past, Stefan, you've done quite a few publications, and we'll get to it later. You jumped around in systems. You're not just a Mutant Crawl Classics or a Dungeon Crawl Classics publisher.
Yep.
You've done some Pirate Borg, I see. I just got my Pirate Borg in the mail yesterday, so I was very happy to see that. Some Primal
I just
Quest.
put that out today, the Pirate Borg thing. It's just
Did you really?
fun. It's literally it's just like a D10 table put on a pamphlet, but it's fun, and you can see the full preview before you buy it. So
That's great, yeah. And you've also done some Primal Quest, which is Diogo Negura's game as well, right?
Yeah, his Stone and Sorcery game. I put those out and got the print versions published through Exalted Funeral, and they did his stuff too, since he's in South America. So print publication in the United States is a little difficult like that.
Really? So you had Exalted Funeral print for you?
Yes, yeah, and we have a deal. Basically, it's they get their share, I get my share, but I made them and sent them to files, and they handled everything else.
Very interesting. I'm going to have maybe some follow-up questions for that later, but let's get through your
Fair.
publications. On the kind of Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics side, you're definitely a Mutant Crawl Classics and a Weird Frontiers publisher. As a matter of fact, I think you had the first or the second Kickstarter for Weird Frontiers after the game itself, right?
I think it was the first one for Weird Frontiers officially. Stephen Newton kind of beat me to it with his Obadiah Faulkner adventure, but that was technically Dark Trails, so I'm still technically the first third-party Weird Frontiers.
Yep. And you put out two different modules together there. That was the Brimstone Cradle and the Hills That Hunger.
Yeah.
And now, so I'll admit I have those. I haven't read through them. I never read through adventures until I'm about to run them.
I'm the same way.
So I mean, I have hundreds of them sitting on my shelf, and it allows me to like browse the back of it or the front of it and look at an intro.
I might give it a little skim, but
yeah, but I never go through them ahead of time, so I honestly haven't read them. But on top of that, you've done some kind of smorgasbord type publications too, right? So I'm talking about the multiverse, what looks to be a series. You had Mysteries of the Multiverse and you had Merchants of the Multiverse. Mm-hmm. And did I see Raiders? Nope, that was something else. That's the two.
Yeah,
right?
I did a couple of MCC pamphlets that were released along with they were stretch goals in the Mysteries of the Multiverse Kickstarter. So they're associated, but not like direct tie-ins to anything.
Yeah. So the multiverse is, you actually had multiple authors on that, right? So it was more like a Dragon magazine type of thing.
Yes, on both of them, there's been multiple authors. On the first one, Bozen who was the artist for all the art in the first one and the cover and a couple more pieces in the second. He did the little adventure in the first. Then I had Darren Campbell. He reached out to me asking for feedback on something he was going to release PDF only. And I went, if you do this PDF only, it's going to get lost. Like this is good. And that was his plans. And I said, hey, I'll get it to print if you want to make like a deal about this. So he did the Adventure in Mysteries. And then I contacted a bunch of third-party people because heck, it's got multiverse in the title. Let's bring like those weird third-party settings in there.
Right.
So Ed's one of the people I contacted. I said, hey, let's like, can you conceive of some, portal to another time and world? And
Oh, that's
he
what that
wrote
was
just
for.
like, yeah. He wrote just like a couple like
The
adventure
muddle in my
hooks.
head lost.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. No worries. But yeah, it's just like a couple of adventure hooks that you could use to try to bring in this all the other stuff that Ed has written into an MCC game. And I did that with Sean Richer, who does like the Terror of the Stratus Fiend, and I wrote a few for the like the Purple Planet and the Chained Coffin and Punjar and some of that stuff. But I tried to contact Starcrawl's also in there. The Aeon Ancient Crisis stuff is in there. I tried to get folks to be able to advertise their stuff a little bit and be able to say, hey, bring my weird stuff into MCC too.
Awesome. So that's kind of your back catalog, right?
Yeah.
But you currently have, as we mentioned previously, what appears to be a pretty good rampaging Kickstarter going on right now in terms of third-party publishing DCC products. You have this one called Elfland: Beyond the Fields We Know, which, as I looked this morning, was sitting right at about the $11,000 mark. So
yes,
it's doing well.
I'm surprised and proud of how well it's
Excellent.
doing.
Excellent. So Ed, you want to take off from here, and you can give Stefan some questions about Elfland.
Yeah, so I jumped on that one fairly recently, and I got to say I've always found exotic settings very intriguing. So why don't you give us the 10,000-foot view of what this one's about, and then how your Kickstarter's gone.
Sure. So it's gone really well. The big view up is there's a zine that it's the titular zine, Elfland Beyond the Fields We Know, because there's not much published in either DCC or the other OSR or D&D spheres of how to have an adventures in the Elfland or Feywild or whatever the heck you want to call it. And a lot of people who do DCC wanted that after they ran Queen of Elfland's Son, myself being amongst them. I eventually got around to reading its inspirational book, The King of Elfland's Daughter, and was very much inspired by it. So the zine is all about like how to have an adventure in Elfland. It's supposed to be a judge's toolkit so that you can do that. So it's got different adventure locales that have kind of like a little randomness to it. So you and a map and some NPCs and a few monsters. Got 6 of those, so that you've got some fairly fleshed out, but plenty of room to fill in as you please. In there for having some stuff in Elfland, but it's also got ways to enter and exit. Table I've got like 10 tables of just like elvish kind of traps and tricks of like you might get turned into a pile of leaves, or whatever, all sorts of just awful things, magic items and curses and things like that, because those traps aren't the curses. I got more curses. And then there's 2 adventures that are made so that they can be run in or outside of Elfland. One called Christopher Robin's Nightmare, which is very much inspired by Winnie the Pooh, because that's public domain now. And it's like a point call through the 100-acre wood, where Christopher Robin is, he's an adult playwright. He's written about all this stuff, literally go into his dreams, point crawl through his dreams, save Winnie the Pooh and all those other characters, and do all this because you find a bunch of elves that are basically bullying and harassing and antagonizing all the characters we probably all know from our childhoods. People love that one. Then the other one is inspired by Beauty and the Beast, where kind of that curse, I put elvishness into it. Both the kind of high level antagonists are the Queen of Elfland in this, and so that's kind of like a dungeon crawl in a manner, and really fun also. And then a zine that is inspired by a children's book called The Golden Heart of Winter that I don't think many people know, but I read it. I still have it on my shelf. And it's a funnel you can run in under 2 hours. It's a pamphlet, and it's people get kidnapped from the mortal world into Elfland, and this Winter Witch wants the PCs to mine the literal heart out of a volcanic mountain so that it will stop being volcanic and be, for the winter court instead of the summer court. And then there's a sew-on patch and a whole heck of a lot of stretch goals we've met, including that every backer will get an original song by the band Loot the Body.
Wow.
So
I have a quick question, if I can interject. You didn't mention, and it was something that's in the Kickstarter notes, when you mentioned the Beauty and the Beast inspired portion. You also mentioned in the Kickstarter that Hellraiser was somehow pulled into that, and so just elaborate on that for a second.
So the time when Beauty was around was a long time ago. So the curse has gotten worse for everyone, and Beast cannot die, but he's in this deteriorating body. So every once in a while, someone will come into the mansion. And this is very light spoilers for some people will figure out, like the first time blood is drawn in the adventure, but just like in the original Hellraiser movie, when blood hits the the wooden panels, it's absorbed into it. Imagine that same visual effect, and Beast comes back and he doesn't know what's going on, and he's going to look for Beauty again, but it's been way too long, and he will never find her. That was however long the judge wants to make it ago. And there's also a fun little mechanic of how much blood do you spill in there. He's getting some bonus HP at the end when you find him.
Very cool.
So what were your inspirations for the setting in general?
Mostly The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. I found that book really good. I didn't quite read it. I listened to the audiobook while I was taking my son on walks in his stroller, and I would always come home and try to get him to take a nap so I could write. But other stories and books and movies, I like how not everyone likes them, but I like how the fairies are handled in the Dresden Files series. But I also thought of going a little bit outside the box. I thought of the movie and also book by Neil Gaiman, Coraline, how the other mother, and it's very Fae to me. And also Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, that book and BBC series are also big inspirations. The last page in the zine will be a inspirational materials list, so there's some more in there, but those are some of the bigger ones.
Cool. Ed, do you have any more questions?
No, not for now.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that I find unique about the stuff that you're creating is that you lean into the pamphlet format, and that is it's a very common thing in Mothership, but really isn't a common thing in DCC. Tell me about what drew you to the pamphlet format.
It was the Mothership pamphlets and some others as well. The two that I first got, because I was intrigued by it and I'd read a couple online, just gotten PDFs. But one from Mothership called "There's a Goblin Loose on Icarus Station," and I forget who that one's by. And another that is by Nate Treme, and it's OSR neutral, I guess. Called "The Blood on Santa's Claws." Okay. And those were the two that I read, and I was like, I love this. I could do something like this maybe. But it's sometimes you have an idea and you're like, this is not a huge adventure. It's not a 10,000 word, not a 5,000 word. It's probably not a 2,000 word adventure. I could probably make it that long, but it wouldn't benefit from being that long. It benefits from being kind of a small sandbox with a lot of improvisation more than being something that's detailed out. And it nor does it benefit from being a fun location or subsection of another adventure. It stands stronger on its own. And also sometimes you're in the middle of a big project that is requiring a lot of writing, but you got some crazy idea that you can't get out of your mind, and you just need to get it out of your mind and kind of finish it. You can make a pamphlet a lot quicker and feel satisfied, and then focus on the bigger project. So
I know that
that's what drew
well.
Yeah,
all the time.
That's what drew me. Yeah, I have I'm sure we all have a lot of unfinished or some state of close or not close to finished projects that are waiting for something.
Yep, indeed. Now, so I'm gonna ask a question that so most of us that are making DCC content and MCC content will put stuff on Drive-Thru-RPG, but I know that I have some stuff on Itch, and I know that you have stuff on Itch. And going back to like the pamphlets, how have the pamphlets performed in terms of sales on the two?
Digitally, the pamphlets don't do that well. I do make it so that because a pamphlet is so small, I make it so that you can see the entire thing before you buy it. It's literally one page front and back, so two pages on Itch and Drive-Thru, you can see the whole thing. I make it so you get a color version, and you can view in the nice way, and you get a black and white version that is easy for your printer. The pamphlets don't do that well digitally, but the Primal Quest ones that I printed through Exalted Funeral, they do well for me, and I get like quarterly royalties, and I've only gotten 2 so far. That's as long as they've been out, but both of them have been good. But yeah, digitally they don't do so well. They basically cover their cost of art and a little bit more, and the art in them is stock art or otherwise by someone who I can get it from pretty inexpensive.
Okay, yeah, so very, very, very similar to what I have experienced as well.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, so you are doing physical ones through Exalted. Do you have physical ones that you like bring to cons or anything like that, or have you not messed with that?
I haven't messed with it yet. With this Kickstarter, it'll be the first time I'm printing my own pamphlet adventures physically, and I might need to do that more in the future, because like I said, as I've seen from the Exalted Funeral sales, they do a lot better. But hey, Exalted Funeral is a pretty good place to sell stuff too. So that maybe it's not just the pamphlets, maybe it's them. Hopefully, it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind my interjecting, so the pamphlet, can you talk a little bit more about it? It's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You design it specifically so it can be printed at home, so no bleed or anything like that.
Yep. Exactly so. And if I print it off my home printer, it doesn't quite get to the edges because I can't do front and back and get to the edges. But like I said, I that's only for like the little bit of texture at the edge, so it's really fine. But yeah, just normal sheet of paper.
This is not one of Stefan's, but yeah, you just have your oops. This one was a test print, so it's flips like this, but
yeah.
But yeah,
I've only done trifold ones just like that. Some people, they'll also mess with gatefold, where the fold meets right in the middle.
So that's how I do character sheets. Sure.
Yeah.
So and what do you find to be different about the writing, something short? Is it lacking detail? Is it intentionally vague? Is that part of the appeal?
All of those, yes. Yeah, you have to be. I think it's really good for writers to try to do something like that, because you are very confined, and that restriction can force you to teach yourself new things, mainly how to be very terse and concise, which if I, with like all my box text that I ever write, I try to think about like the human mind can only remember 5 to 7 things on average in the short-term memory. So like I really shouldn't have very many sentences. I should ideally have as few as possible and convey all the important information in as few sentences, and not try to cheat by having big long ones either. So writing in a pamphlet like does a really good job of teaching you how to do that. But it also kind of you can make a fun little adventure that is got a lot of room for improvisation, like I said earlier. So I really like that as well. I think like I said, I mentioned 2 specifically earlier. There's a Goblin Loose on Ictor Station and the Blood on Santa's Claus. They're both very different in like the scope of like the geographical size, but they're both really well done. You also see interesting things in just the layout and the formatting that you don't see in larger size adventures, which from folks like us is probably more intriguing. But is kind of, I guess, one of those things like a good editor. You don't notice when they're there, but you notice when they're not there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting thing about box text. It needs to be there at some level. We're used to it, and there are certain judges and everything who rely on it, right? And so it's there as a crutch. It's something that I learned about when I was running RPGA events back in third edition. Was that people were actually much happier if I could summarize, if I could go and come up with that box text myself. But there was a real reason why that was sitting there, because there were a lot of judges who had a problem, improvising a list, right, and giving that the appeal that it needs to be. And so I'm always kind of torn, because looking at something like OSE, when you look at old school essentials, they've kind of deconstructed that entire format to just bullets. And one of the things I've always wondered is there's a primacy order in which sensation occurs in humans. So things like smell and sight are much more powerful than touch, or taste and things like this. And actually taste is wrapped up into smell anyway. And so
I personally taste every dungeon I go into.
That's the right way to do it. Lick all those doorknobs.
When I was
scratch and sniff is your next
that's the next stretch goal. Yeah.
Right.
That would be great. When I was in anthropology learning how to test the difference in archaeology between bone and ceramics, it was always a tongue taste test, right? So you put your tongue on it, and if it stuck to your tongue, it was bone, and if it didn't stick to your tongue, it was ceramic. And so you could tell the difference when you were in the field in a pinch, which every archaeologist said there's no pinches. It's just that's what they do that all day, right? Yeah, that's bone. That's ceramic, right? I mean, that's what they're doing.
Wow. They're always getting really full, spoiling their dinner. Yeah,
right. I mean, you can only take so much grit in, but so yeah, since especially for me, smell is a huge motivator in terms of memory, and obviously it's something that if it's a heavily repulsive smell, that gets a reaction before you even see what it is. And so I've always wondered if it would be better to skip box text and simply give a list in order of primacy for sensations. This is how you should report this.
On the other hand, if you have the box text and the GM is not inclined to use it, I don't feel like they've lost anything. They can read through it and summarize it themselves or put it in their own words if they'd rather do that. But on the other hand, a GM who really likes to have that because they don't feel as free coming up with those descriptions. So it seems to me like you don't go wrong by including it.
Yeah. Unless as
long as you do it well.
Yeah. Right. And it's fun to write. I mean, you can get really descriptive and you've got, sometimes those paragraphs can get a little long, but you're right. To me, it's always a balancing act, which is more important. Yeah. And you're disadvantaging one group over the other if you remove it.
Yeah. My quick 2 cents on it, because I've run into circumstances where I've played with a GM that they could not put stuff into their own words in it was this halting, utterance of sounds that it really broke the immersion.
Yeah.
But they could read.
What?
But they could read. Right?
Yes.
And so they would read, and you got the information, and I've certainly had that. And I'm not. I mean, every judge has their weakness and their strengths, right? And so it's a real handicap to take it away. But when you're pinched for space, I mean, I work in a small form factor, and one of the things I've been trying to do is lay out an entire scene's worth of material on 2 facing pages. That's a real limitation. And
but I guess I get spoiled because everything that I'm writing, I have no space limitation.
Right.
One thing I've seen in a few Mothership adventures is, these tiny format things, they have no box text. They don't do bullet points like OSC. They just, rely on the judge to get the feeling. And they try to convey a lot of that through the layout, through the colors and
Yeah.
how the art looks. Some of them will have just one little, paragraph of just these short, almost fragment sentences. And it'll be a little paragraph and it'll just be titled vibe. What is the vibe of this location? And that can be really useful when you don't have any form of box text or bullet points. I would at least say put that.
And I think it comes down, like I said, again, to the strength of your judge, right? I mean, I once ran a 7-year vampire campaign off of 2 sheets of paper, and that was it. The notes were set on the first day, and I never changed them, and we just went, and it was a great time. But not everybody can just remember all these abstract and obtuse facts and pull them back in and give evocative text and everything. And there were certainly weekends when I failed. And, so I can see where, having box text is useful. And certainly at a convention setting, right? When I was running the 5th or 6th RPGA event for Gen Con, my brain was fried. And so in those circumstances, it's great to have that crutch to fall back on.
But I'm sure you also had some of the like, oh, I have to read this crap again. I've never read the Desert of Desolation, old TSR stuff. I got it recently. And I'm reading through it, and some of the like sections are great, but then I get to a half a page of box text. I'm like, no one's ever reading. Like, my players are snoozing halfway through, and when I finish, and they're gonna go, so what? Like, so I don't know. Be careful with your box.
Or they end up missing that part entirely, and you never get the chance to expound upon it.
So
because they went that way.
One thing that I will always remember about the Desert of Desolation series, because I went through it when they first came out, is that from the box text, my cousin, who's 4 years older than me, kept referring to the domed ceilings as doomed ceilings, and that has stuck with me all these years.
Man, they must have some sweet murals up top.
Right?
Yep.
So anyway, thanks. Like I said, I've never done these pamphlets before, but it's something that I've thought about. I've been doing, and I know, right, at least I think Nick is as well. We've been doing Dungeon 23. Look, I even have the river paper notebook and everything. It's been
I've got mine somewhere around here.
Got yours
on this
too?
desk somewhere. Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting
book.
exercise. I'm not getting quite a room a day. And I find that I probably do way more note taking on background stuff instead of just a tight room. But maybe what we should do, maybe for the DCC community, it'd be cool to do something like a pamphlet a month or something, or 4 pamphlets in a month, right? And so just put that challenge out there.
We should do a DCC pamphlet jam.
That's right.
That would be good.
That would be good. So how would we do that, Nick?
So I've never participated in one, but they're very popular on Itch. What were you going to say, Stefan?
I've never run one, but I've participated.
What was it like?
Yeah. It feels a little bit disconnected for me, because but some people, they're really getting in, they're talking to each other, they're figuring out the pirate board thing that I released today, which is called the thing I did was called "What the HE double hockey sticks is a fish blade," because there's some silly little fish blade meme going around. I won't bother to explain it, but there's like a dozen or so different things on there. People just, the theme was fish blade and the meme that originated from it, and you just did whatever you wanted. I made a little pirate board table of D10 things that are all the fish blade. And so one is like, it's a ship, and another is like, it's a curse where you can't stop talking about fish blade until you make something that's a fish blade, whatever that means to you. And, and 8 more things. But other people, they've made like 1-page games. Other people, they're doing all sorts of stuff. So it's generally like you have one theme, but you just do whatever you want in that theme. And
so do you advertise it and everybody's working together at once on a platform together where they can talk to each other?
Yeah, you can use the Itch community pages and forums to talk to each other. I just saw the meme and saw someone was doing it and went, I have an idea, and really did it on my own. So I wasn't like into the self-forming community there. But so it's as much depth as you want to get into.
We should do a pamphlet jam on Scrivenery with like 6 guests, where every 15 minutes you have to check in. You have the 1 hour. I bet we could get Elena to find us a spot where there's 2 hours that we could do it in. You have 2 hours to conceptualize and at least get written down your pamphlet.
All right. Yeah, it's just everyone's Affinity publisher screen for the whole time, and
For
then
the whole
typing
time.
right in. Yeah,
Right.
it's gonna be very entertaining.
I don't work that way though. I know Nick does. He types right into InDesign, but I'm a very tactile. Actually, look, I even bought one of the multi pens.
Oh my word, I haven't seen one of those since I was in grade school.
Yeah, I was
$3.
just thinking that.
$3, and it is awesome, and I can color code my maps and sketches as I go. And so yeah, it's well worth it. I think this is my GM tool of the month. And
Nice.
And so, but you're right. I mean, they used to be bigger. I got this one. I thought, man, it's like half the thickness.
No, you were just smaller. It's when you're going to
Yeah,
the Scholastic
smaller.
Book Fair.
Yeah,
You had little
It was
kid
like
hands.
10
Yeah.
the last time I saw one. But I found mine at, I think, a Walmart, and so you can get them all over the place.
The difference in everyone's approach never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, well, and I'm constantly refreshing my approach, right? It's I type, I write by hand. I have about 5 different notebooks that I work out of. I have for mine, I have an encyclopedia that I hand write. And when I run out of ideas, I just go into the encyclopedia and start adding entries. And within an hour, I know exactly, I'm like raring to go.
So I'll say for my thing, my dungeon room a day, for the whole 2023, I got like really prepared. I have an outline in Google Doc that has like 32 weeks of different things where I've got each room planned. I don't necessarily follow it, but like I had a core theme. I stuck to it. I really got it out before January 1st. And so at the beginning of each week, I write the different rooms for that week in pencil. But that's the only thing that goes in pencil. If I want to do something different that day, that's what's going in pen. And the map gets scribbled over a lot. But that's how I've prepared for it. But everyone's doing something a little different.
Yeah, I decided that I would not do one mega dungeon, but I looked at my to-do list, the things that I wish to write. And I was like, I've got a whole bunch of, I never write modules, but I'm like, but I have these ideas that I've been like putting away. And so the idea is to go through and essentially get like a dungeon a month done, right? So that then I can at least start playtesting them and going from there and everything. And so this one, it turned out, this was perfect because just as I got my notebook, Gary Kahn, authorized all my things. And I realized I had written an adventure. I submitted an adventure for Gary Kahn and I had totally blanked on what it was. I didn't even remember that I'd submitted it. And it was something I had 0 written down for. And so I was like, well, I'll start with that because that would make sense.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And so, so I've been working on it and everything, but yeah.
That's a way to light a fire under you.
It is. It's like, Gary Con's coming up and it's, what is it? 2 months away. It's like 8 weeks away. And so, so I need to get cracking because I've got a whole bunch to do.
Yeah, you're even more of a pinch than I am. I've got 2 of the events I posted for Origins are things that are not yet written. And I'm hoping to have them not just written, but published by the time of Origins. So
wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only
I think
person that does
you
that.
might have me beat there. Like I said, at least I'll have my notebook and I can work. I know how to work off of that. But yeah. Well, cool. I think we've gotten completely off track.
We did.
A
we
little bit.
want to get back to
but in a
Alpha.
good way.
But it's still a useful track.
Yes.
Yeah. So off of pamphlets, if we could kind of circle back to Elfland, maybe hit some nuts and bolts. Your Kickstarter preview page had a lot of follows.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. It's a deeply personal question, I know, but what's your conversion rate right now?
I'll look. It's in the 20s. I will have it in just a few seconds. 23%. I have 543 project followers and 125 converted out of that.
Okay. So
That's awesome.
23%. I mean, Nick, what's your
Which is good.
experience?
I don't know. I think I usually have like 20 to 30 followers, and I have no idea what my conversion rate is, but it's not that good.
I'll say I've gotten about this before. I think on my last one I got like 30% or a little above that conversion. But you know, my last one, a lot of the people was like they backed my last Kickstarter before that. So
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and so that's what happens. Several months ago, Phil Reed
Mhm.
posted on a Kickstarter. He had just finished up, like I think it was November, October last year, and his conversion percentage was sitting at something like 60%. And
I mean, he bangs them out though.
That's insane, right? I mean, and it was a high for him too. To get 60% conversion is huge. I think I average about 22 to 25%.
20 to 30 is the normal that most people get.
Yeah. So if you're in that 20 to 30 range, people are at least looking at it, and that's nice.
Mhm.
So you've got some good refresh, right? You've got that. What do you attribute to actually getting that preview? What was it? Do you think, did you advertise ahead of time? What was your strategy?
I didn't pay for any advertising, but I've been mentioning it on the DCC Discord. People have seen me playtesting a good bit over there. So I know I got the dungeon crawlers and the Goodman Games Discord. Like the folks who are there a lot, they know I was up to something. I was on a couple of podcasts. You guys are the last stop on my press circuit. I've done RPG Ramblings, Wobblies and Wizards, the GMologist, Wasabi Burger, who has a Twitch channel and a YouTube thing. He does some DCC. I did an interview there, and there's probably another one I'm forgetting about. So I did all that promotional stuff. I've done a couple of online cons. I have my own newsletter on Substack that anyone can subscribe to, and when you subscribe, you get a free little pamphlet zine, or you got to print off 2 pages front and back, so slightly more than a pamphlet, but you get a PDF that's like a nice PDF form and a version that's formatted so you can just print it off at home, and it's in the right order already. So and I've got about 200, just a little bit more than 200 people following me on there. I sent messages to via updates to my 2 last Kickstarters, and I sent a message to anyone who's ever bought anything from me on Drive-Thru RPG using their promotional way. And
I've never used that.
I've never used that either.
This is the first time I used it. I would recommend I used the tags on Kickstarter. You didn't always, but now you can use tags in the pre-promotion part of it as well. So I gave myself a name for everything. Got one for tonight, so that I can keep a record of where I'm getting the best numbers from. And my Drive-Thru RPG numbers did well. I'm constantly talking about it on Twitter too. That did well. I mean, the top 3 are still from Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So Kickstarter is a big help. I put it on the DCC RPG subreddit, on the OSR subreddit, and that got up to the top of the front page of that particular one for a good number of hours in that day. I put it on the RPG subreddit, but it didn't do so hot on there. But I just, anywhere that I'm already a part of the community, I was doing it, and I even put it in all the self promo channels on every single Discord server that I'm on, even if I don't really do much on that particular server. So I did as much as I could. I didn't do everything. I didn't pay for advertising. I didn't even put it on Facebook because I don't have a Facebook account. So I think I listed everything I did. So I tried to do a bunch. And the other thing is I did a good day one thing. Trevor, you do that. The day one you get a free patch. People love that. People love patches. I love them. I have a jacket full of them. And I did a bunch of cool stretch goals, and we'll see how much that stretch goal, all those stretch goals, add in a bookmark here, a couple stickers there. We're probably going to hit the one where I'm making a poster too. those all add eventually to the, like, for every physical backer that I have, the base cost of the zine and the module and the patch and the pamphlet, that all has, the production cost. But okay, now I have the production cost of the 2 stickers and the bookmarks and probably soon the poster too. So, my per customer, just the cost basis goes up per each stretch goal, but hopefully they're exciting enough to attract even more people who are going to go, I'm only going to get this thing if I back the Kickstarter, because he's not sending the sticker to Exalted Funeral Goodman Games when he prints it later on. And I, so this is also kind of my big experiment for how well that goes. And afterwards, I'm going to, guesstimate basically by the only kind of solid metric I'll have is, what do I see people talk about online in the comments on the Kickstarter and elsewhere? Are they going to say, I love my sticker? Or are they going to say the bookmark was my favorite thing? And so it's hopefully exciting people what to do, to back it this time, but hopefully even more than that, it's telling me what I should continue doing next time.
Yeah, I find that, so this is the second time I've tried. I tried a first 24-hour. I tried a first 48-hour this time. The first time it was a patch, the Smoking Worm patch, which I love, and it actually came out way better than I thought it would. And
it's on here somewhere.
You have one already? All right. And then the other one that I tried this time were coasters. And
right.
Oh yeah,
there.
that's the Hangman's Garden one. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's a good one too. So I actually bought those at the same time. So I had the Smoking Worm patches like months and months in advance before I ran Kickstarter 5. So I'm pretty sure you've got a Smoking Worm patch coming to you next week.
Yeah, I should.
And then I think Nick has one too. I can't remember if you backed in the first 24 hours or not. The coasters and everything though, they did really well. What I noticed was it flattened out my curve. So I got I used to get a third of my sales in the first 24 hours, a third of my sales over the next like 20 days, 18 days, and then a third of my sales in the last 24 hours. And what that created for me was a lot of anxiety. And the reason why it created a lot of anxiety is because
that's the whole process though, right? The whole
process is anxious, but there is a specific set of, you're looking at it and you set that threshold for publication. I need this much money before the event or the Kickstarter goes and it's gonna fund. But almost everybody sets that actually far lower than what they really need. And so an average issue of Smoking Worm cost me about $6,000 to publish the limited edition.
But you're doing it on the expensive side. You do higher quality.
Mine is expensive, right?
Pretty much everyone else.
The average cost per book is $780. That's just the printing cost. And then so by the time you work that out, plus you work out art, which we have no clip art, everything is custom, and now it's custom to the layout and everything. So we do the layout, it's in final, and we send that to the artist and say, you need to fit this. I don't care how you do it, but they send us sketches back on the layout. So we know that
just to chime in, you're a madman for like printing something that costs that much and selling it at the price you do, because people are like, you shouldn't sell anything for minimum 5 times what it costs you just to make it, and ideally it should be 10 times. And
that's right.
Maybe your spot is somewhere in the middle. So you're just you're a crazy person for doing that, and everyone who buys your archival quality stuff is getting the sweetest deal.
Well, thank you. I thank you for actually understanding what that is, because the truth is what I figure is that the Kickstarter funds all the costs, and it produces the superior product in that it's archival quality. It's soy-based inks. They'll dry and they'll be good forever and everything, and they don't fade. There's a whole, and then they have a specific look, right? I mean, so risographic printing has this print look that looks like old comic books and old print looked like back before we were using high resolution laser printers and inkjets and everything. And so there's a whole sense of thing there. But you're right, it is sold at a massive discount. And then when they're gone, what that allows me to do is actually keep the costs of the standard edition, which is printed much more economically, to keep the cost of the standard edition down, so that hopefully those sales will eventually, overtake everything.
You have your loss leader, and then
Yeah. And so, and then everybody's getting the people who support me in the Kickstarter are getting a really good deal. So what I noticed when I went to these first 48-hour things is that 2/3 of my sales occur in the first 24 to 48 hours. And then I don't have the anxiety of thinking, is it just going to flatten and I'll never see a tail end curve or not? While I always appreciate more backers, the anxiety is way lower for the next 20 days. Right. And that's a big thing.
Yeah.
So
I'm feeling that too.
Yeah.
I just noticed that we are getting tight on time.
Yeah. Ed, you want to cover some road crew stuff? I think that was next on our list.
Yep.
Yeah, so I feel like one of the best ways to not only promote your product, but also to engage with the community and get really solid feedback on your product is by running events at conventions. So why don't you tell us what you've done in terms of your road crew experience, particularly as it relates to your own materials?
Yeah, just run it a lot, and I try to really thoroughly play test my stuff, and also I'm a mod on the Dungeon Crawlers Discord server now. I didn't start out like that. I was running games online before COVID and trying to start up, hey, every Thursday night, rotating judge thing, just like Thursday night, there's always going to be a game. And it was going all right. We were getting some players, and COVID happened, and we had a lot of people and a lot more online games. Everyone knows how that kind of went. But just running it a lot, talking to people about it. My Winnie the Pooh thing started out as a joke. Beginning of last year, I was like, hey, Winnie the Pooh is, public domain now. Everyone want to do a, pitch in, and we can all do one hex and 100-acre hex crawl. He went, oh, that's so amazing. You should do that. And I went, okay, I can't do 100 hexes. That is not something I have in me. So it turned into a point crawl for the actual publication. But it got such a positive thing off of just like me joking around in the community online. I was like, whoa, there's like, I see the demand, and it seems like a good idea. I was kind of having fun mulling it over in my mind. But yeah, run your games, talk to people about it online. What you're publishing doesn't need to be super secret. People are not going to steal your idea, because ideas are cheap. Execution is what's expensive. There's a slim chance someone might steal your idea. It's not impossible, but if you're the one working on it and putting it out, like you're
not going to beat you to it.
Punch. Yeah. And get other people to run it too. Like I've got people who I'm just like, I'm friends with because I talk to them all the time. I play games, and they're like, oh, you're making another thing. I want to, get in the playtester list, and I want to see that you're always working on something fun. So I got, like 4 different judges to run the Winnie the Pooh thing, because that just excited so many people. They wanted to run that more than the Beauty and the Beast thing. I got people to run that too, but they really wanted to do the Winnie the Pooh one. So I don't know. That's what I got to say about it.
Very cool. Very cool. So kind of wrapping things up. So one of the things that I noticed is that you spread your love around to a bunch of different systems. And you've mentioned on Twitter that you have a tendency to get an idea and you're like, I've got all these other projects that I need to finish, but I'm going to run with this thing for a few days, which I relate to so well. But yeah, so what's next for you, and what are your goals for 2023?
I am working on another Fishblade meme related thing, but for Mothership. And I've been contacted by Don Stroud, much like you, Nick, to write something for Ruination Pilgrimage, which is his, horror fantasy Mothership thing, which sounds like it'll be one adventure, or like 1-page spread, or 2 pages, 1 spread is kind of the description I got. I don't have anything else that's not DCC planned or DCC related planned for the year. But those things just kind of pop up and intrigue me. I did a thing for Rune, which is a solo, crawling thing by Spencer Campbell that was like, I wrote like 88 pages, they're not like super text heavy pages, but it's like 88 pages of stuff all inspired by the video game Bloodborne, because that thing just sticks in my mind. But we'll see what else pops up. Hopefully later this year, I'll have a fun MCC adventure that is like part Willy Wonka, part the song Big Rock Candy Mountain come out. I've had a lot of fun playtesting that, and I've got a couple Weird Frontiers adventures that I'd like to come out. But I let things sit a while until they're ready to come out. The Blood Rose Curse, that's a part of this Kickstarter, that's the Beauty and the Beast one. I wrote and pretty much finished writing that around halfway through 2020, and was just like, this is like a 5,500 word adventure. It's really fun, but if I just put it out on its own, it would just not seem that impressive. And so I just waited until I had something great to pair it with. And I tweaked it and polished it over time. But so I've got no problem with the 5 fully written DCC, MCC, or Weird Frontiers adventures that are in my Google Docs folder for that. They'll sit in there until it's the right time for them.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So is there anything that you would like to share before we step away?
I did what I think is a really good like publishing quick, here's everything in 1 hour on Rules as Written the other day with Matt Robertson. So people are interested in the publishing side. I guess that was like our how to write rules instead of Rules as Written episode. But besides that, keep writing, keep reading, and keep taking notes on everything you read and write, so you can use those little notes to write something else down later. But yeah, ideas are cheap, execution is what counts. And if you need some help, ask people, because it's not like any of us are getting paid the big bucks out here to do all this. We're doing it because we like it. We're following our passions. So find a way to contact us. I'm pretty sure at very least there's an email address and like for reaching us in any publication we do. And at very least I'll respond to you and give you some kind of advice if you do. But it's a community, so be a part of the community, ask questions, get answers, do what Miss Frizzle said, and get messy too.
Very good. Very good. And I'm going to real quick correct a lie that I said earlier. As it turns out, my last Kickstarter, I had 253 followers. I'm shocked. And a 26% conversion rate.
Nice. That's good.
But I had no idea that was a thing.
Now remember,
on day one, I got like as many people backing my thing as I did throughout the whole last Kickstarter. So I was very worried for a while, going, did I just get them all real early? Will there be any more?
Very good. All right, so there's another show after, so we should get going. But thank you for being on.
I interrupted Trevor.
Oh, start.
Sorry? Did you interrupt me?
I sure did. I said we got like 7 minutes before they need to come on, right?
They need a transition time.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, we could talk a lot more about the nuts and bolts of publishing and everything, but we can always have you back. Are you planning? Actually, here's a good question. Are you planning any other projects or Kickstarters for later in the year? I mean, Elfland looks like it's kind of a beefy project. It might take you a little while to fulfill.
Well, hopefully not, because I got like pretty much everything ready. I'm doing layout on one adventure, which I'm going through final edits right now. So it's about to go to layout, and I got all the art. So hopefully I'll have everything to backers in 2 or 3 months. That's how I like to do things. I don't want their money sitting in my bank account. I want to get their stuff to them. Sure. And have you announced anything yet, or do you want to announce anything? I haven't announced anything. Hopefully that MCC adventure, which is currently titled Technomancer of Candy Mountain, will be the next thing. Awesome. It should be a lot of fun, but we'll see which way the wind blows.
Cool.
Very good.
All right.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you
for having me.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right, folks. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep.